Hi, I'm Joy Kelly, and this is Cook with Joy, and I'm really excited that this is becoming your favorite cooking show. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to make one of my favorite recipes. They're rice paper wraps. A lot of people get a little confounded by rice paper wraps because they don't know how to wrap them, but I'm going to show you how. It's going to be super fun, and what's really great is that you can use all those vegetables that you have in your fridge that you haven't been using and you feel guilty about, and then you throw them away because they turn into that green mush. We're going to actually use them today. And these are things that you can get your family to eat that they will totally love. So here we go. So you're going to have a bunch of different ingredients depending on what you have in your refrigerator. But today I'm going to show you what I have in my refrigerator, and I'm going to make a couple of things. So the things that have to be prepped ahead of time, you might already have this in your fridge. I'm going to do some brown rice, and maybe you've got some brown rice from like last night's dinner you didn't use. And I'm also going to use yams or sweet potatoes because I love the flavor and the texture of this. And yams are so good for you. They're really high in vitamin C, which a lot of people don't know. We're going to bake this ahead of time, and we're going to cook the rice ahead of time, and then we're going to put the rest of it together. First thing we're going to do is cook the rice, and we're going to use broth instead of water. First of all is taste, of course. I like things to be delicious, and when you use broth instead of water for rice, it picks up the flavor of the rice. I'm going to add a little garlic too, and that's going to add some flavor. But the other thing is that a lot of people don't realize that broth is really mineralizing. It's very alkalizing in all the vegetables, especially if you make your own, which I often do, and I'll do a video on that. But if you use broth, you're going to get a lot more minerals in your rice than you would if you just used water. You notice that I have two different broths here, and there's a million different broths if you go to your aisle in your grocery store that has soup broth in it. I like to make my own, as I said, but if I can't make my own, I'm going to look for the label that says low sodium. Most packaged food is pretty high in sodium, so you want to get good at reading the sodium labels. You've probably heard me say this a million times, but when you look at the label, you want the calories and the milligrams of sodium to be equal or less than. You want the sodium less than the number of calories. Now, sometimes when you're using a condiment, that's not possible, but with broth, it totally is. But that's not totally true, because broth is a condiment. So, when I look at the nutrition facts on this, I see that there's 35 calories on the miso broth, but there's 850 milligrams of sodium, as opposed to this one that has 10 calories and it only has 120 milligrams of sodium. So this is the one that I'm going to use. I think you should too. Let's get started with this. I'm going to take the little tab out because it won't come out otherwise. And then you're going to add half as much rice as you do liquid. Some people say, you know, a little bit more than twice as much, but I know this is a dry measuring cup, so don't make me wrong for that, but I like to be efficient with my utensils, so I'm going to use the dry measuring cup for the wet stuff too. I'm going to put 2 cups of broth, and if I have to add more later, that's okay, and then I'm just going to add a cup of the rice to it. I'm going to get that boiling on high to start, and then once it comes to a boil, I'm going to cover it and just simmer it. Do you like my fancy pouring technique here? That's called the pinky pour. I'm going to pour that in. You have to be very practiced to get that pinky pour down. I'm going to add a clove of garlic as well, just because I want it to be as flavorful as possible. And you know, a lot of times when they take sodium out, people don't think it tastes like anything because salt, fat, and sugar are our most dominant taste buds on our tongue. And when you take one of them out there, people go, oh, there's no flavor to this. And this is a nasty piece of garlic. We're not using this one. A lot of times people think you can use stuff like that because you're just putting it into a broth, but I always want to use the freshest stuff I can. So I'm going to put a nice looking garlic clove. Look how nice that is. And you can smell how nice it is. I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to cover it because it's going to come to a boil faster. Once it's come to a boil, I'm going to turn it down, and then it'll probably take about 20-30 minutes for it to be completely done. While that's cooking, I'm going to get my sweet potato in the oven. I'm going to use parchment paper underneath the yam to keep it from sticking. And I do this once again. Everything I do, I seem to do for 2 reasons, right? I keep saying that, but I do this for 2 reasons. Number 1 is to not use any fat when I'm baking this. And number 2, the most important reason is it's really messy to clean up if you don't use parchment paper. All I'm going to do is put the yam, this is very technical now, so pay really close attention. I'm going to put the yam on the pan, and I'm just going to make a couple of little stab marks in here so that it doesn't explode. If you don't do this, it will explode all over the place, and then that is a real mess. This is the violent part. We've stabbed the potato, and now we're going to throw it in the oven. We're going to bake it, I don't know, until it's done. It's probably like a half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we're ready to put the wraps together. Are you excited? I am. Okay, so while the rice and the yam is cooking, I'm gonna get all this other stuff together. Here's a little tip of the day, another tip of the day. I'm full of tips of the day. I like rice paper wraps. Almost every recipe that I have, I like because of something. This one I like for a couple of reasons. I like it because you get to use up veggies that might go bad if you don't use them. It's a way to get your kids to eat more veggies because they're super fun, they're delicious. They stay in the fridge for a couple of days, so you can make them ahead of time, and now you've got these really quick little snacks that you'll love, your kids will love, that you can take with you. And also, your family's gonna like making them with you. You're gonna see it's really fun, and you're gonna feel so accomplished when we put these together. Like I said, you can use anything you want in these wraps, and you're gonna find lots of different things to use, but what we're using today is we're using some rice that I've got on the stove, we've got the yam that I put in the oven, and then we've got this nice cucumber that came out of my garden. It's gonna be delicious. We're gonna julienne it. Then we're also going to do thin slivers of avocado, because I don't think any meal should not have avocado in it. That's just how I feel. I don't know about you. These are little cherry tomatoes that came off my garden, and I love tomatoes once again in just about everything. We're going to quarter those and add a little spice to them. We're going to also use some hummus, and I'm going to thin the hummus out so it's going to be drizzled down the center, and it's going to add a little bit of a kick to everything it touches. And then I'm going to experiment with these green onions. Not quite sure I like green onions, but I'm not quite sure I love them in the wraps. I think we'll do half with the green onions and half without. Once again, those are going to be julienned. Same thing with the red pepper. These are delicious. And you could roast the red pepper if you like. I like to leave the crunch in there, so I'm going to leave them julienned, unroasted. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of cilantro because I love cilantro. Let's cut up the red pepper first. That's my favorite part. I like how crunchy it feels as you cut into it. And so you see the little seeds that are inside. Of course, we don't want to eat those. Now, if this was a spicy pepper, you probably wouldn't want to use your hands to take the seeds out, because then you'd put them in your eyes and then you'd start to cry and you'd have to go see the ophthalmologist. So you really just want to use a knife if this was a spicy pepper. And sometimes I use like jalapenos, not if I'm going to give them to kids, but sometimes I'll do that. We're going to cut them pretty thin, but not too thin, just about like that, because that's got enough meat in it, so it's going to be crunchy. Don't you just want to eat that? You can see how fresh it is. We're going to cut the whole bell pepper up like that, just thin little strips, not too thin, as I said. And so you get all, now you could actually do this the night before. Like if you knew you were going to have some people over that would be your slaves and put the rice paper wraps together, you could have all this stuff cut up the night before, and I often do that, but I wanted you to see the labor that goes into this. It's not a lot, but there is a little bit, and you know, you might not have cut up a red pepper before, so I'm showing you how. And are you loving this experience? We're going to do the whole bell pepper this way, and you could use yellow, you could use orange, you could use green. I do not like green peppers, but peppers have an amazing amount of vitamin C in them. They're super good for you. Okay, let's move on to the avocado, because we're going to get a red and green theme going on here. Once again, we're just going to do a thin strip. And you know, you can tell if the avocado is too ripe if it doesn't come apart. Well, but that one came apart really well. I'm going to cut the outside off. Lots of different ways to cut an avocado. If you were just going to squish this into it, you could dice it inside of the skin and cut it that way. But because we want to get a nice little strip here, we're going to slice it on the board. And I'm going to add to this, I'm going to add a little flavoring, because things that are wet will hold some spice, some flavor to it. The red pepper's not so much, but definitely the avocado. So I'm going to add this spike seasoning. This is a salt-free seasoning made from a bunch of different herbs, orange peels. I've been using this forever, like since college, so years and years. I don't know if you guys have seen this before. I think I need some more spike. Well, there is some more in there. There you go. So I'm adding spike. Ooh, that's a little bit too much. It'll all work out in the end. And see, I think my rice is boiling now. It is. Shoot. So I'm going to turn that down. So we're going to get that simmering. Where is a hot pad when you need one? Shoot. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. See how pretty that is with the broth in it? See how much better than it is with just water? We're going to take so I'm going to set the red peppers over to the side, and we are going to cut into the tomatoes. Now these get kind of juicy. You're going to see them next here to my mountain of avocado with spike over the top. But what you're going to see is that spike is it's just going to blend into everything, and so you can't screw it up. And you know what? I love recipes that I can't screw up. Most of the recipes that I show people how to make are recipes that you really can't screw up. So we're just going to get a few of these little cherry tomatoes cut up, and like I said, you want them small enough so that when you roll them into the wrap, they're not gonna like stick out and be too many. Because I already got so much spike on the avocado, I don't think we need to add any more spike to the tomatoes. I'm gonna leave those as they are. Then we're gonna cut up the cucumber, and I'm going to cut these in the length that I want. So the wraps are going to end up being about this long. So notice the red peppers are a little bit too long, so I'm probably going to have to cut those in half when I do them. But with the cucumber, I'm going to cut them right in the exact length that I need them to. I'm going to leave the skins on because, frankly, I like the skins. You don't like the skins? You don't like peels? What's the matter with you? There's a lot of nutrition in the peels. So, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to peel half of it. And we'll use half of it peeled and half of it not peeled. Is that okay? All right, this is a great peeler, by the way. This is a KitchenAid and it's super heavy. And we'll do a taste test. We'll do some with peels on, some with green onions, some without. So once again, we're gonna julienne this. And all julienne means, I think, I'm pretty sure this is true, it just means little thin strips, and you can see how precise I am with my cutting. I have a girlfriend who is such a precise cutter and chef, and everything she does looks perfect. Christy, if you're watching this, you know I'm talking about you. And like everything is just perfect. I don't know how she does it, but I've never been like that, but everything I make tastes pretty good usually. So I like that part, and the one thing I can count on is it's going to be really nutritiously dense. Now the cucumber, I would like to have some kind of flavoring, and like I said, maybe we have enough of the spike on the mound of avocado, but I'm gonna also put some stuff into the rice, so that'll add to the flavor as well. So we've got the little green onions, and we're just gonna cut those up the same way. Gonna keep them the same length as the rice paper wrap, because if we wanna get the flavor, if we cut them any smaller than that, there's not gonna be a whole lot of flavor. I'm not gonna do a bunch of those because we're just gonna try those in a couple to see if we like them for future reference. Last thing before we get the rice and the yam out of the oven is let's take the hummus, and I'm going to thin it up a little bit, and let's put some lemon in it because that'll give it a little bit of bite, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got a lemon and I got a little dish, and we're going to use the lemon. There's a really cool little appliance that I love. This is a lemon squeezer, and what's great about it is that you don't get all those little, now a lot of times people think it goes in this way. That would be intuitive, right? But it does not. It goes in this way for whatever frigging reason. I have no idea. But it goes in this way, and I'm just going to squeeze the lemon into the bottom and see how I'm not getting any of those seeds in here. They're squishing all over the place, but I don't have any seeds in the lemon juice. And I'm just going to add some of the hummus, and we're going to get that mixed. I probably should have put the hummus in first and then put the lemon juice, because when you try to mix things into a liquid, the less liquid you have, the better it mixes. You ever notice that? Like when you make wasabi, start out with a little bit of soy sauce before you add a ton of it. So anyway, this is going to get kind of soupy, and this is great because it's going to go down the center. It's going to soak into the rice, and it's just a little bit thinner than the hummus that we've got. See? So it's not yet like liquid, but it's much thinner than what we had. All right. If the yam and the rice are done, we're kind of ready to go with this. I think the rice is done. Let's have a look. Yes, it's more than done. Someone should turn off that burner. Jeez. Okay, yeah, it's good. Now, when you overcook, not overcook it really. If you get it to where it's a little bit dry, just add a little more broth to it, just a little bit. Stir it up a little bit so you can hear that sizzling. And the other thing that I'm going to do with this rice is, this is a secret now, this is so delicious, we're going to add some gamasio, which is just sesame seeds, which are excellent for you. The fat in them is something that really helps your skin and hair, and it has a little bit of sea salt, so it's going to give it some more flavor. If you had black sesame seeds, it would add to the color, which I'm always looking at, how can I make this be more colorful? Now, another spice that you might like is something that I never can pronounce right. I know that the Japanese always call it chichimi, but whenever I ask for it at a Japanese restaurant, they never know what I'm talking about. So I just have to describe it. On the back, it says right here, ichimi, but it's togarashi. So I should probably say ichimi togarashi. And I should say, anata wa Nippon desu ka? I should say that. I should say, watashi wa America jin desu ka, right? Okay, everybody got that? So this is going to add some spice to the rice. So if you like spicy, which I do, so I'm going to add a little bit, but I'm not going to add a lot because some people that are eating it might not like it. But I'm going to mix that all together, and now I've got a really great rice mixture. Let's see if that yam is done. It's done, yay!
How do you know it's done?
What do you mean, how do you know it's done? It's done because it's done. It's squishy on the end. But if I was gonna eat this like in rounds or something, I wouldn't wanna cook it that long, but because I'm gonna scoop it out and put it into the wraps, it's absolutely perfect. Where's my knife? So if you see on the ends, this is really super, super soft. See how soft that is? And you could mash it up and have it with some earth balance and some salt and pepper, and it would be good too, but we're gonna scoop it out and put it onto the wraps. Like I said, if I was going to eat this like in rounds and dip it in like sriracha sauce, I probably would like it harder like it is on the end, but it's still ready to go. That cooked really fast, I'm amazed. We are ready to put these things together. I am super excited. Are you? First thing we have to do is start out with the rice paper. And there's a couple different kinds of rice paper. This is a big kind, this is a little kind, but there are lots of different brand names, and almost every grocery store will have these in the produce section, which I don't understand that, but they do, like where kimchi is. They're both Vietnamese, but I have found that the little ones are a little bit easier. These little guys, they're a little bit easier than these big ones. So you can see this big one's already like falling apart a little bit. So I'm gonna find one that's not. The good thing about the big ones is that they're easier to roll because there's more surface area. So let's start with that. There's two different ways that you can prep these. I never got this about rice paper. Like I got these rice papers out and I'm like, how do you do anything with this? They crack when you fold them. Like this, see? You saw how this one was all cracked? I mean, you know, so it's like, how do I roll it? And then like, how would that even be delicious to eat? You can either run it under hot water, you know, tap water, just have it running. Or my favorite way is to fill a pie tin and just let the little gallette de raíz, which they call it, the little rice paper, let it soak in this pan. Now this is probably should be a little bit hotter. As you start to get a little conveyor belt going, you can just leave these sitting in here while you're doing your next one. So I'm gonna actually do that with my subsequent ones. I'll have them ready to go, because what I have to do is wait until all of the starch goes out of this. It's gotta get kind of limp. No side cracks, no wise cracks about that. But we wanna make sure that all of the stiffness gets out of this, so that it's really, really, really super thin. So we're gonna take it out of the water, shake out the excess, and then lay it down on a surface. And I've got a little silicone thing underneath just to keep it from sticking. I'm gonna put greens on the bottom because I like the color of the greens, and you can use anything. You could use lettuce. I'm using arugula today just for the difference of taste. You could even use kale if you wanted to. Next is gonna come the rice, and that's already got the sesame seeds mixed in it, remember? So that's gonna go down the center. That's gonna give it the bulk, and that's gonna really kind of keep it together. Next, we're gonna put in that thinned out hummus, and I put that on next because it's gonna soak into the rice and give the whole roll a really great flavor. A lot of people think you have to dip these rice wraps in something, but if you make them the way that I just showed you how, you won't have to do that. So next we're gonna add a little bit of the, we're gonna put a little bit of the sweet potato. It doesn't matter what order you put it into after this point. I find that if I put the softer stuff on the bottom, then the other stuff will just kind of smush into it. So now I've added the avocado. I'm going to add a piece of cucumber. I'm going to take the red pepper, and see they are a little bit long, so I'm going to have to break off the end of the red pepper, and that's okay because I can use them in other ones. I'm going to add some of the tomatoes. And like I said, we were going to kind of go back and forth between green onions, but let's put green onions in the first one just so that we can remember that it's there. And then we're going to add cilantro at the end, and I'm just going to add a little bit of cilantro. Not everybody likes cilantro, so you might want to make some without, but cilantro is super good for cleaning your blood. It is really helpful for getting heavy metals out of your bones. So I put the bottom end up first. It's just really like a burrito, but it's a little bit more wambly than a burrito, but that's good. And you're going to do the top of it.
What's wambly mean?
What's wambly mean? You know, like when everything kind of falls apart. You know wambly. Okay, so now I'm putting this side over, and now I want to kind of tuck it in, so I'm getting it to be nice and tight, right? Nice and tight, and I'm rolling, 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 and see, this one broke a little bit, but it's still really edible. If it broke any more than that, I'd probably want to put a second skin around it, but that one's okay. And I'm going to put it over next to the other one I made earlier, and now I've got a pair of rice wraps. Let's try it with the smaller one. Obviously, because it's smaller, what are we gonna have to do? Put less stuff inside, right? So we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna soak it. We're gonna get all the starch out of it. Soak, soak, soak. Water's getting a little bit cool. That's the one thing about using the pie plate is that you have to keep, like if your camera guy is like kind of slow and you have to wait for the water to get hot again. So I probably should have put more hot water in here, but that's okay. So we've got that pretty soft, and we're just going to do the same thing, but notice this is going to be in miniature. And I like to make them smaller because they don't tear as much, and because they're, like if you're going to do a party, you wouldn't want to do all those big ones. A little bit of hummus, but notice everything's just a little bit less. A little bit of the potato. This is going to be so good. Little tomato. So it doesn't really matter what order you put them in. I'm going to use the ends of those red peppers. I'm putting in some avocado. I'm going to skip the onion on that. That's how I'll know which ones have onions. I won't put them in the little ones. I'll put the tomatoes in already. I won't put the cilantro in this one. Did I get everything? I think that's everything. Okay, so we're going to roll this little guy up, and he's going to be smaller than the other ones. So let's see if I can do it. I might have put too much in. Shoot. And I think it's going to be good. And you know what? It'll all go down the same way anyway. So wrap, 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 wrap. And see how adorable that is? And you can control like what leaf you put on the outside. And you could, like at St. Patrick's Day, you could put a clover leaf in there. Wouldn't that be adorable? That would be so cute. So that's it, you guys. That's how to make a rice paper wrap. And I've got a couple of them here. I'm going to finish up making all of these because I've got family coming into town for the holidays. And I'm going to keep these in the fridge. They'll probably last for 2 to 3 days if they don't eat them all. But it's a really quick on-the-go snack, super healthy, not too filling, delicious, full of flavor. And I hope you try these and share with me how it turns out. And we'll see you next time on our next episode of Cook with Joy, your favorite cooking show.